Capture is a group that's looked at this realm for some time and has a really unique and effective way of looking at creative ideas. Take a look at this matrix that's in front of you now. The matrix is going to help you look at the difference between what's novel versus useful. It has two axes. The first x-axis is looking at something that is useful or not. Y-axis is looking at whether something is novel or not. It goes from less useful to highly useful, and from less novel to highly novel. We'll talk a lot about getting things up into the upper right-hand quadrant. If you look at this chart, you'll really need to focus on the products that bring a paradigm shift. One key challenge looking at this process is to understand the difference in products or services that are super cool and interesting, but aren't really that useful, and therefore people aren't really willing to pay for it. Or if they do pay for it, they're not willing to use it in the long run. You may have ideas and potential resulting products that are plausible and make sense on paper, but don't have the demand to build a business in the time frame you have with the funds that you have. These are businesses that fall into that 90% failure rate. Remember, there are many businesses that are growing, but too slowly and too expensively. This is a huge problem with techies, people who develop technology. They love the technology, so the technology is solving a problem for them. What we need to do is help them understand, the entrepreneurial tech friends that you have, which might be yourself, to think about products that use technology to solve a practical problem for the end user. Are they the same as the techie? Probably not. That may be very different than the cool technology or the 100 features that your product has. Can you identify the 3 features that are most important to a user and that would make them buy the product? Do the other features enhance the usefulness and desire, or get in the way of the clarity of what matters to that user? These are 2 different and important things to understand. To build something that people want, there are 3 important factors to consider. First, industry expertise. Does your founding team have the right background to be able to identify problems in this space at a deep primal level and deliver solutions that are truly useful to the prospective targeted customer? 2, true deep understanding of the problem. Does your team have the ability to deeply understand the problem of your customer? Can you identify the root cause of this problem and see things that others wouldn't see or might overlook? 3, customers. Does the team have a clear understanding of who the customer is, and do they truly know them? Who is the customer base? Either because they are their own customer or they've worked with that customer base before and they understand them deeply. This is a nuance that may not seem that relevant, but in fact, it's really important. Understanding the actual long-term customer of your product, how they think, how they live, how this particular product is going to fit into their lives to solve a problem or provide a great desire, that's key. Deep understanding of the customer, whether you in fact are exactly like a customer or not, is what makes a great entrepreneurial management team effective. Let's take a look at how successful entrepreneurs actually got their ideas and why this matters. Capture spent a great deal of time and developed a database of the top 100 startups around the world. They wanted to answer the question, how did these entrepreneurs develop great ideas? There are some interesting and relevant results which apply directly to you. We highly recommend you look at the article and spend a little time with it. I'll give you some thoughts and highlights here. The survey clearly highlights what we looked at earlier, that great entrepreneurial success stories involve identifying and noticing a major problem, which often comes from deep industry expertise and awareness of the background of the problem. Of the top 100 startups that turned into unicorn, 27% identified a problem based on an industry expertise. 19% were scratching their own itch, solving a problem that they wanted to solve for themselves, and recognized that others had that same problem. 11% were copying other startups who were successful in other realms and markets, in areas and products, and building a product based on that with a twist. That twist is going to be one of the most important things we're going to talk about shortly. We're not talking about copying and pasting. That's where people take an idea and say, oh, they have an idea from Silicon Valley. I'll apply it in my market here. In a twist, you take a look at companies and products that have been successful in other markets. Then you look at the underlying problem that that product solves in that particular market. Now you take that and map it to see if that same problem exists in your market and how that problem is different in the market that you know and live in. Once that is understood, you then develop a new product that solves the specific problem in your market around the same concept as the original idea, and you apply that. 9% of businesses that were highly successful grew out of existing businesses that they were spun off from. 7% of them were pivots from an existing business. What is the big picture? Expertise in identifying real problems to solve are some of the underlying trends toward highly successful businesses. Here is something you'll hear a lot of people say. Oh, I'm a serial entrepreneur. And as an investor, whenever I hear that, I think, is this somebody who invented another form of cornflakes or Cheerios? It's such a used expression. Who is a serial entrepreneur anyway? A real entrepreneur is somebody who's built other businesses or been associated with building other businesses in various roles. 30% of the top 100 unicorn founders had already exited a startup before at some level. Maybe not necessarily as the leader, but they've been through the process. What that gave them was a clear understanding of all the elements of building this very difficult thing called a new startup business. If the new businesses they're proposing is in the same space as the entrepreneur's old business, this also may have helped them. It'll help them understand the customer base, their problems, and how to build a solution. It'll help build a solution that's simple and effective, that's needed, desired, and that people would buy. As we highlighted earlier, the ways in which serial entrepreneurs got their ideas are as follows. 1. Industry expertise, increased by 41% for serial entrepreneurs. Scratch your own itch, find your own solution, increased by 23%. Build a product that copies something that existed with a twist. Changing the world, and then spin-offs of existing businesses. One of the experiences that I had as an entrepreneur was building a company around the concept of one person, one telephone number. This was a problem that I saw that I had and that many others had. I came from the cellular industry, the paging industry, and the fax and social media industry. I once had a business card that had 7 telephone numbers on it. You could reach me at my East Side office or my West Side office. You could reach me on my beeper, my cell phone, my fax number, my home number, or the answering service number. How many people have you seen like that who have multiple numbers? Well, these days, it tends to be only your cell phone number that you give out that solves that problem. But earlier, when cell phones were just a concept, people had multiple numbers that they would be reached at. We had to dial one number after another to get to our potential customers, and this became a major pain point. So I got together with a couple of technologists, described the problem they needed to solve, and they were quite capable of coming up with a mechanism to have a single phone number that would literally follow you from cell phone to home phone. It would take your fax. It would connect you to a phone that you were at somewhere else, and it would screen your calls if you were out of the house or out of the country. If you dial my number today, that's exactly what will happen. It's called Access Line, or the one person, one number concept. We built the product and its sustainability through patents. We built a company that now many people use, including Google, in their one-number service. This was about solving a very clear, defined problem that I experienced. And when I asked other people around me, they experienced as well. And they agreed that if you could solve that problem, it was worth spending money on a monthly basis to do so.